Have you ever felt the weight of it, that constant pressure on your shoulders, the ache in your spine from carrying something immense, something you can't ever seem to put down? We give this weight different names. We call it expectation, we call it responsibility, we call it the past, we imagine it as something external, a burden placed upon us by our family, our job, the world. We walk through our days, bent under this load, believing we are carrying a mountain. But what if I were to tell you, the mountain isn't something you're carrying, the mountain is what you're made of, the mountain is you, all that weight you feel. It's not the rock you're holding. It's the rock you haven't yet claimed as your own. It's the unacknowledged parts of yourself, the strength you doubt, the resilience you forget you possess, the history you see as a chain rather than your foundation. We think the goal is to finally put the mountain down, to be free of the weight, but you cannot put down your own being. The struggle isn't to carry the mountain. The struggle is to become the mountain. To stop seeing yourself as a traveler, straining under a crushing load, and to realize you are the very ground you stand on, you are the summit and the base and the unshakable strength in between. That critical voice that whispers you're not enough, that's not a storm raging against the mountain. That's the echo inside the mountain. It's your own depth, the fear that you might fail, that you might crumble. That is not a threat to the mountain. It is the mountain's own awareness of its vastness, its recognition of its own scale. So the question shifts. It's no longer, how do I survive this weight? The question becomes, how do I inhabit my own magnitude? You stop trying to shed the rock. And you begin slowly to settle into it, to recognize that what you thought was a burden is actually your substance, your dignity, your unshakable core. The path isn't about finding a way to lay down the mountain. We spend our lives in a state of quiet exhaustion, perpetually aware of a profound weight upon our shoulders. We narrativize our fatigue as the result of external pressures, the expectations of our parents, the demands of our career, the relentless pace of the world, the accumulated baggage of past mistakes. We craft a story in which we are the protagonist, noble yet beleaguered, tasked with carrying an impossible load up an endless hill. This mountain becomes the central antagonist of our personal journey, a cruel imposition we did not ask for and desperately wish to be free of. We long for a future where we can finally lay it down, where our shoulders will know a lightness we can now only imagine. This perspective, however, is a fundamental misdiagnosis of our condition. The ache we feel is not from a separate, external mass we are forced to bear. The weight is the substance of our own unintegrated self. The mountain is not a burden you carry. It is the unclaimed territory of your own being. It is composed of all the aspects of yourself you have been taught to disown. Your raw strength, which you mistake for aggression, your deep resilience, which you dismiss as mere endurance, your profound capacity for feeling, which you label as weakness, your unique history, which you view as a collection of scars rather than the very bedrock of your character. You are not a traveler carrying a backpack of rocks. You are the entire geological formation. The struggle, the chronic fatigue, the sense of being crushed, these sensations arise from the internal conflict of resisting your own nature. You are trying to distance yourself from the very thing you are made of. You are a river fighting against its own banks, a forest trying to uproot its own trees. The energy required for this constant resistance is what you experience as the weight. Every time you doubt your capability, you are refusing to acknowledge a cliff face of your own inner strength. Every time you hide your sensitivity, you are denying the rich, fertile soil of your own compassion. Every time you run from a past failure, you are disowning a layer of stone that gives the mountain its height and perspective. The mountain is not your enemy, it is your totality. The path to liberation, therefore, does not lie in finding a way to discard the mountain. That is an act of self-annihilation and impossibility. The path lies in the courageous, gradual process of turning inward and laying claim to every last stone. It is the journey of ceasing to be a porter for your own soul, and instead becoming its sovereign, familiar with every canyon, every soaring peak, and every silent, unshakable foundation. The weight begins to dissolve not because you have put it down, but because you have finally stopped fighting against it and have allowed yourself to fully inhabit its form. The entire paradigm of the journey shifts when we understand the true nature of the mountain. For so long, the objective has been one of relief. We have seen the mountain as an adversary, and the ultimate victory as the moment we can finally, triumphantly, lay down our load. We dream of a life of lightness, unencumbered by this massive, difficult thing. We believe freedom is the absence of weight, but this is a profound and tragic misunderstanding. You cannot put down the mountain, because the mountain is not a separate entity you have picked up. It is the core of your own constitution. The very essence of what you are, your experiences, your strengths, your vulnerabilities, your history, is the substance of this mountain. To wish to put it down is to wish to cease being yourself. It is a desire for a form of spiritual suicide, a quiet vanishing act where the complex, layered, and potent individual is replaced by a weightless, but also featureless and insubstantial, ghost. The true goal, the only authentic path to power, is not to put the weight down, but to undergo a radical metamorphosis in your relationship to it. You must cease to be the carrier and become the inhabited. This is the shift from carrying to being. It is the difference between a traveler who struggles under the crushing weight of a backpack, their entire focus on the pain in their shoulders, and the mountain itself, majestic, unshakable, and utterly grounded. The traveler is defined by the burden. The mountain defines the landscape. This transformation is not about finding an easier way. It is about discovering a more true way. It requires you to settle into your own substance. To stop seeing your resilience as just a tool for survival and to start recognizing it as the very bedrock you are built upon. To stop apologizing for your depth of feeling and to start understanding it as the rich inner ecology that gives you life. To stop fighting your past and to start seeing it as the strata that gives you your unique texture and height. When you make this shift, a profound change occurs. The pressure doesn't vanish, but it transforms from a crushing force into a grounding presence. The weight is no longer something you carry. It is the mass that gives you stability. You are no longer at the mercy of the winds of circumstance because you have become too vast, too rooted, to be blown over. You stop asking, when will this be over? And you start understanding, this is what I am. The goal is not relief from being you. The goal is the full, complete, and powerful embodiment of everything you already are. We often perceive our internal struggles as assaults from the outside, the critical voice that dissects our every move, the fear that whispers of impending failure, the anxiety that tightens our chest. We experience these as external storms, as bad weather raging against us. We brace ourselves against them, trying to shield the fragile self we believe resides within. But this is a mislocution of the source. That critical voice is not a gale blowing in from a foreign land. It is the echo inside the mountain. It is the sound of your own thoughts reverberating in the vast chambers of your potential, a sound that seems frightening only because you have not yet become accustomed to the scale of the space in which it resonates. The voice is not an enemy to be silenced, but a signal of your own profound depth. It is the sound of a consciousness large enough to observe itself, to question itself, to hold itself to a high standard. Similarly, the fear of failure, of crumbling under pressure, is not a prediction of your collapse. It is the mountain's own awareness of its vastness. A small hill does not fear a landslide. It is too insignificant to comprehend such a cataclysm. Only a mountain, with its immense mass and soaring heights, is capable of being aware of the scale of what it is and the theoretical possibility of its own erosion. This fear, then, is not a sign of weakness, but a paradoxical confirmation of your strength. It is the cognitive and emotional recognition that you are something substantial, something that matters, something whose success or failure carries weight. The storm does not rage against the mountain. The storm is a temporary interaction with the atmosphere that reveals the mountain's enduring character. The rain, the wind, the lightning, they do not define the mountain, they merely test its form. In the same way, the internal challenges you face do not define you. They simply reveal the contours of your character. They show you where your cliffs of resilience are sheer and where your slopes of compassion are gentle. When you stop perceiving these internal experiences as attacks and begin to understand them as the natural phenomena of a complex, substantial, and living system, which is you, you can stop bracing and start listening. The echo is not there to torment you. It is there to show you how deep you go. The fear is not there to paralyze you. It is there to remind you of the significance of the journey you are on. These are not forces to be defeated, but aspects of your own landscape to be acknowledged, understood, and integrated. They are the very features that give you your distinctive and powerful profile. The moment you realize the mountain is not a burden but your own being, the most fundamental question of your life undergoes a radical transformation. It is a shift that changes everything. You are no longer asking the desperate, survival-oriented question, how do I survive this weight? How do I make it to the end of this exhausting journey? This question is born from the paradigm of the burden bearer, the individual crushed by an external force. It is a question that seeks an end to the struggle, a cessation of the pain. It is a question whose only answer is a fantasy of relief. But when you understand that you are the mountain, the question must evolve into something far more profound and far more powerful. How do I inhabit my own magnitude? This is not a question of survival, but one of embodiment. It is not about enduring your existence, but about fully occupying it. The word inhabit is crucial. It implies making a home within something. It suggests familiarity, ownership, and a deep, settled presence. To inhabit your magnitude is to move into the vastness of your own potential, as you would move into a great estate, learning its rooms, appreciating its views, and understanding its foundations. Magnitude speaks to scale, significance, and substance. It is the acknowledgement that you are not small, not insignificant, not meant for a quiet and cramped life. You are built on a grand scale, with peaks of talent, valleys of emotion, and forests of untapped creativity. The old question sought an escape from the self. The new question demands a deeper immersion into the self. It moves the focus from the external sensation of weight to the internal process of integration. How do you become a conscious resident of your own strength? How do you live within your resilience so fully that it becomes the ground you walk on, not a tool you occasionally use? How do you settle into your history so completely that it becomes the bedrock of your wisdom, not a chain around your ankles? This question, how do I inhabit my own magnitude, has no single answer. It is the central inquiry of a purposeful life. Its answers are found in the daily practices of self-awareness, the courage to acknowledge your own power, the compassion to embrace your own vulnerabilities, and the will to act from your core rather than from your fears. It is the work of a lifetime, but it is work that is no longer a wearying burden. It is the work of a sovereign exploring and cultivating their own kingdom. The goal is no longer to finish the journey and put the load down. The goal is to fall so deeply in love with the landscape of your own soul that every step, even the difficult ones, is taken with a sense of belonging and purpose. The ultimate freedom we seek is not, as we so often believe, the freedom from weight. It is not a life of effortless floating, untethered and light as air. That is the freedom of the dandelion seed, carried on any passing breeze, with no say in its destination. True unshakable power is not found in the absence of burden, but in the profound, unbreakable stability that comes from a complete and total acceptance of your own substance. This is the power of the mountain. It does not flee from the storm. It does not tremble at the wind. It meets the gale with a silence that is not passive but active, a deep, resonant stillness born of an immense and settled mass. The winds that once threatened to topple you, the very forces you spent a lifetime bracing against, have not disappeared, but their relationship to you has been utterly transformed. When you are the mountain, the hurricane, force winds become nothing more than a whisper through your pines. The blizzards that once seemed capable of burying you, now merely dust your peaks with a temporary, beautiful white. The external pressures of life, criticism, failure, loss, expectation, do not cease to exist. But they cease to have the power to define you, because you have become something too vast, too rooted, too complex to be altered by surface weather. This rootedness is the final stage of self-acceptance. It is the realization that you do not need to become something else to be safe. You do not need to be lighter to be happy. You simply need to be exactly what you are, fully and without apology. Your roots are your connection to all that has formed you, your past, your heritage, your loves, your losses. They anchor you so deeply in the truth of your own story that no force can rip you from your foundation. This is the end of the exhausting struggle to be something you are not. The energy you once spent on resisting your own nature, on trying to shrink your landscape to a more manageable size, is now available to you. It becomes the sap that feeds your growth, the internal energy that allows your forests to thrive and your streams to run clear. You are no longer fighting against yourself. You are, at long last, occupying yourself. And in that occupation, you find a peace that is not passive, but powerful, a strength that is not hard, but deeply resilient, a freedom that does not mean the absence of weight, but the glorious, sovereign presence of your own magnificent and unshakable self.